You're listening to the original 70s soundtrack 96.5 CTG with Alan Barnes and Sue Steward. We have on the line with us tonight Mr. Neil Sedaka from New York City, who is playing in Virginia Beach on the September 3rd and 4th at Busch Gardens. That's Labor Day weekend. That's the Saturday night and Sunday night of Labor Day, kids. How you doing, Neil?
Good, Alan. I'll be singing all my oldies. I'm looking forward.
And speaking of your oldies, this is a 70s show, but your history is just so phenomenal. And I've got to ask you, as a songwriter myself, what it was like being a young songwriter in the Brill Building and just being a part of such a stellar lineup of people.
Well, I started writing at 13, very young, and placed songs with Atlantic Records at first, Clyde McFadden, Laverne Baker, the Cookies. And then when I was about 18, I walked into the Brill Building with Howard Greenfield, who was a poet and lyricist. And we walked in with a group of songs, and we were the first team to be signed to the Brill Building in 1958. And it was very exciting. We went into an office with a piano from 10 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, 5 days a week.
Wow, so it was really a Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. We had Alan O'Day on a few shows ago, and he was describing he was a staff writer, I think, at Warner Brothers. So how does that work? I mean, did you guys basically, were you on salary and got no publishing, or?
No publishing, unfortunately. We were on salary, and I was the first in the Brill Building to sing my own songs. So I had a big string from 1958 to 1963, about 40 million records, I'm happy to say, sold around the world. The Diary was the first. Oh, Carol, Stairway to Heaven, before Led Zeppelin. I wrote a Stairway to Heaven. Little Devil, Breaking Up Is Hard to Do, Happy Birthday, Sweet 16, Calendar Girl. It was a great run. It was a great run in the 50s and 60s.
So when you were actually producing hits and singing them yourselves, were you still a staff writer there at the Brill Building?
Yes, I was. And then in 63, when the Beatles and Rolling Stones and the English came in, I wrote exclusively for the publishing firm. And I had records with Frank Sinatra and Bobby Darin and Connie Francis and Elvis Presley and Fifth Dimension, many, many great artists.
And I remember reading somewhere, and the analogy I'll draw is, I think when the Beatles came in, I mean, and pop careers were so short back then. It was similar to me that, where you ended up, like the hair metal guys, in that they were ruling the charts, and then when grunge hit, suddenly, they couldn't get phone calls returned. Was that distressing for you? I mean,
Well, it's a real ego downer. After being on the top for 5 years, people stopped me in New York and asked, "Didn't you used to be Neil Sedaka?" But I wanted very, very much to come back. Once you have a taste of that, you never forget that feeling. And Elton John was starting a record company in the mid-'70s, and he was a fan of my old records. And he signed me to the record company, and we had an album called Sedaka's Back with Laughter in the Rain. And it was quite a remarkable comeback. I think it was even more remarkable than Tina Turner's, because I was really a ghost from the 50s, and to come back in the 70s to a completely new audience who never heard of Neil Sedaka was quite a feat.
And to give you some perspective, I'm 45, and I was 10 years old when Bad Blood came out. And I had known you from my mother's records, and certainly I think Calendar Girl was the one that really stuck out in my mind. It was from some 50s compilations that she had, early 60s stuff. And without even knowing about the Elton John connection, I mean, that record just leapt off my radio. It leaped. It was just so big and so contemporary sounding. And so I didn't view you from a perspective of Neil's back. Neil was this brand new guy that just wrote these tremendous songs. And Laughter in the Rain in particular is just, it's that opening melody is just, it's to die for. And even more important than that is the way you bend your voice through that. After a while we run. That. I was
off the charts for about 12 years, so I knew I had to reinvent myself, Alan. You know, that's the reason I've been around over 50 years. You always have to raise the level, try something different, reinvent yourself. And I think that's what did it. You know, it was a time of the singer-songwriter, the 70s, Cat Stevens and Joni Mitchell and my old friend Carole King.
Sure.
So I fit into that groove very well.
Yeah, and something else that I think, speaking of reinventing yourself, that was interesting, and to my knowledge, you were really the first guy that ever really did this, was when you recast Breaking Up Is Hard to Do as a ballad. I mean, Eric Clapton did that years later with Layla. He totally reinvented that song. But until that point, I don't know of anybody that took such a huge hit, even I'd even say your signature song, and did such a daring but beautiful remake of that. I mean, it's a totally different song done that way.
Thank you. I originally wrote it in 1962 as a doobie-doobie rock and roll tempo. And then in 76, I was fooling around at the piano, and I realized that Breaking Up Is Hard to Do worked equally well as a ballad, a slow ballad. And I recorded it again, and it was #1 again. So I am one of the few that had that distinction.
Yeah, and it just, like I say, and now everybody does it. They, you know, to be cynical, sometimes it feels like they're just trying to retread things and to get a second hit off the same song. And it became trendy for a while, doing unplugged versions of songs. But when I just heard that, it just completely blew me away. And then, of course, as a child, too, I loved Captain and Tennille. Love Will Keep Us Together was another one of your huge hits.
Thank you. Yes, I put that on the Sedaka's Back LP. And they were a new group just starting out. And a man by the name of Kip Cohen on A&M Records heard my recording and played it for them, and it was their debut and my first Grammy. I've been nominated several times, but that was my first Grammy for Love Will Keep Us Together. It was a fantastic interpretation of my song.
Oh yeah, there's just no doubt. When now, as a songwriter, I'm gonna take you back to that a little bit if I may, because I'm such a huge fan. But when you worked with Howard Greenfield, and you mentioned Elton John earlier, was your relationship with him as a lyricist similar to Elton John and Bernie's relationship? I mean, did he just bring you lyrics and you set them to music, or did you sit in the same room? Or
no, we sat in the same room, and it was give and take. I wrote some words, he wrote some music. It was a very close collaboration. Being a pianist and a serious music student at the Juilliard School, I usually wrote most of the melody first, and then Howie would fit the lyrics in. But it was a very close collaboration.
See, and that's how I normally do things, although I don't have a lyricist. I try to do it all myself. But I always thought it was fascinating that Elton John could take a finished set of lyrics and just completely set them to music in such just an enormous way.
I have done that, yes. I've written a poem first and then set it to music. It can work both ways. But, you know, it's very scary, as you know, being a writer. You have that blank piece of paper in front of you, and you're expected to be up at bat and top your last pieces. And it takes more effort today. I still write. I still am recording new songs, and I'll be doing a couple of new ones at the Busch Gardens.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so cool. To me, it feels like, and I know, did you find that as you were actually producing hits, did the writing become harder? Did you get like writer's stage fright? I know Peter Frampton had said that when he was selling a couple 100,000 units, he could write freely, but then Frampton Comes Alive sells 20 million, and suddenly everything he tried to write, he started projecting these huge audiences and second-guessing himself a little bit.
Well, you become more picky. You don't settle as easily. You become more critical of the work. You have to step out of your comfortable sphere and write something that is different and something that excites you. Because if you write the same kind of song all the time, it becomes dull and repetitive and boring.
Right. Did you, and as a songwriter too, and we're still in the 70s, when I think Solitaire, was that on Sedaka's Back as well?
Solitaire was on Sedaka's Back, yes.
But then the Carpenters came along and had a hit with that, and you toured with them, right?
Yes, I did. I was the opening act for Karen and Richard Carpenter. Unfortunately, we had a little parting of the ways. She was an absolutely marvelous singer, and I was lucky during my comeback to have that spot as the opening act. But the reviews were more in favor of me than them. They sounded too much like their recording, and here I was jumping and dancing, and I had this remarkable comeback, so I was more of a stage act. And my reviews were more superior to theirs, so they wound up firing me in the middle of the tour. I guess I had too many standing ovations. I don't know.
Gosh, yeah, that's not never a good thing. But I guess it is. It was good for you though. But when
it wound up in the long run, very good for me. I became the headliner after that.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that got some press too. There's no doubt. Here's another interesting thing to me that I just recently found out about your career. And again, I'm a songwriter trying to do it myself. You were another first thing that I think that you did was, I think somewhere in the 80s you sort of got tired of record companies and decided to do your own label and get your music out that way, which now everybody does, but out of necessity. But you made a choice there, and I can't imagine that's a small undertaking.
Well, sorry to correct you, but it wasn't my record label. I went to small independent labels and recorded, because this is a very trendy, fickle business, and you have to try fresh things and new people who believe in you and who will back you. But they were not my recording.
Oh, okay.
They were not my companies.
But do you do that now when you put music out? Are you still working with a third-party label, or are you distributing directly? Or
now it's all internet. The label is merely a distribution center. People download the records on Amazon and iTunes. There are no more record stores left. So I sell at the concerts. I sell my CDs at the concerts. And my new one will be a new collection of songs with Ronnie Dante, who was a great record producer with Barry Manilow.
Okay.
And he was actually the voice of Sugar Sugar, the Archies.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
He's a very talented guy. And we just got together after all these years, and he'll be producing the records. But today, really, it's word of mouth, it's internet, and downloading.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too. We've had a lot of people on that we go into this discussion of the modern music business. In some ways it's more empowering because you can cut the middleman out and you can get your music out directly. But now there's this sea of millions of people all vying for the public's attention. The tastemakers have sort of left the industry. We used to sort of rely on radio to somewhat tell us what was good and what was coming. But now it's really laborious to go through some of these independent websites, and I'm on one of them myself, trying to find out who's good. And YouTube,
and also public television. I was on that several times, and QVC, the shopping channel. These are all very good avenues.
Well, and then of course the big one, that the gorilla, the 10-pound gorilla or 100-pound gorilla or 1,000 in the room. I gotta go down this road with you because I'm a huge fan too, and I'm pretty sure you are, of American Idol. Your appearances on season 2. That's an amazing way to break an artist. Although I don't know if it really has legs. I mean, what's your thought?
Well, I was very thrilled. I was a fan of American Idol, and I called. Absolutely cold. I called one of the staff members. I said, "Hi, this is Neil Sedaka," and she said, "Is this a joke? Is this really Neil Sedaka?" I said, "Yes, I'd love to be a celebrity judge." She said, "Well, we're in conference right now, but we'll call you in a couple of hours." And she called me back, and she said, "We're going to use you in a few weeks as a celebrity judge." There were 5 people left: Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard and 3 others. And they sang all of my songs that night. It was a great thrill. I couldn't walk in the street. I couldn't walk to the shopping center or the cleaners without being stopped.
Well, I bet you still can't, because, like I said, we've had a lot of people on this show that have sold tons and tons of records. But for name recognition, I mean, as soon as I mentioned this interview to people, everybody would sort of straighten up in their chairs, like, Neil Sedaka, really? And I'm like, yeah, Neil Sedaka, really. And
well, I've been around over 50 years, and
sure.
The songs have remained timeless, I'm happy to say.
Do you still watch American Idol now?
I do.
What did you think of this last season?
Oh, I thought the last two contestants, remind me, they were both very, very good. Was it the girl
The
who was
country
like
kids, yeah. I can't remember their names either, and they'll
the
kill
girl
me.
reminded me of a hippie flower child. She was wonderful. And the guy who won, let's see.
Okay,
The
now
guy
that was the season before. That was Lee DeWise and Crystal Bowersox, the coffee
oh, I'm
house kind
sorry.
of vibe people. Yeah, I agree.
Who was the last one?
The last two, this last year, they had that young boy that was a country guy. He sounded a
Oh,
lot
yes.
like a throwback country guy, and then the girl was country as well.
Yeah, oh, they were both excellent. Yes, young, great country voices. I kind of liked one of the runner-ups, the very rock and roll guy.
Yeah, James, yeah. The Screamer?
What was his name?
James the Screamer?
Uh,
He kind of did the metal stuff with Judas Priest and all that.
Yes, he was marvelous.
Yeah, he did. He had a wonderful set of pipes.
I thought he was marvelous. I forget the name, yeah, but he's great.
Yeah, it's always
James.
interesting every year. Yeah, James was his name. Did you the dynamic without Simon there? Did you think that was a good thing or a bad thing? You did?
I didn't miss Simon. I think Simon's in trouble. I think he's in trouble because there are so many singing programs, and the nastiness goes just so far.
Right.
He certainly was on target many times, but off target several times. And I liked the chemistry of Tyler, and I liked J-Lo.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was very entertaining. The singers were very good this year.
Yeah, it was a much nicer, kinder, gentler version of Idol this year for sure. But yeah, I'm with you on Simon. I think most often I found that I agreed with him, but I was sort of mindful of such fragile young egos up there just being eviscerated. I know that's the business. They're trying to toughen them up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's sort of a sick, voyeuristic, negative entertainment value that we all just sort of would sit and watch to see how hurtful his next remark was going to be. And I'm sort of glad they got a little bit away from that.
Yes, but the winners are now making the Billboard charts. I'm happy to see that because that disappeared for a while. But I see the new winners are on. But I did think this year they were a bit too lenient. Everything is great. You sound marvelous. You give me the goose pimples. It was a bit too lenient.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it was a good in-depth criticism for sure. Actually, Randy was cast as the guy who I most often agree with. Keeping it real, as he likes to say. So, Mr. Sedaka, Neil. Again, you've got these two shows coming up at Busch Gardens in Virginia Beach, and just so our listeners know, the way they do shows there, when you go to the park, it's free admission to the show. But I would imagine that I don't know if you've done this before, and what performer doesn't like a 2-night stand, so you don't have to travel. You get 2 shows in off of 1 plane ride. But I think that it would probably be well advised to them that they want to get into the venue part of the park early to make sure that they get good seats.
I love to perform. I love to sing. Did not start as a singer. I was a concert pianist at the Juilliard School in New York, so I have an extensive musical background. Just to throw a curve, I wrote my first piano concerto and my first symphony, which I've been doing around the country with symphony orchestras. But I love to perform the oldies. If not for them, I wouldn't be here today. And I think the audience picks up on the fact that I love what I do. I love to sing. And it was a time when music was very happy and very intelligible and melodic. And, I think people are going back to that.
And at forgive me, 72 or 73 now, just being out there on stage and being high energy like that, it's just amazing to see.
I amaze my young friends with my energy. Yes, the music has kept me young. Absolutely,
it sure does. Well, Neil, I struggle calling you Neil because you're Mr. Sedaka to me, but just thank you so much on behalf of all our listeners for calling up. We're going to certainly encourage them to go to the show. We've still got a little bit of time in front of that, and just keep doing what you're doing. And thank you so much for sharing your gift with us for all these years.
It is a gift, Alan, and I love to give it back. Thank you so much for calling.
All right, you have a nice night.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.